Welcome to Intershop's tutorial presenting the simple deployment of a production system. In this tutorial, we want to show you a general approach to deploy a production server locally. We already prepared a project and the local artifact repository Sonatype Nexus. For the preparation of the project and the artifact repository, we refer to the cookbook Setup CI Infrastructure and the tutorials Simple Setup of a Development System and Prepare your artifact repository server, to be found in the info box and the description. Our system is based on Linux. We additionally provide adoption instructions for systems based on Windows. So, what are we going to do? First, we build and publish a release, not a snapshot, of our development project, A Responsive, which is regarded as a finished development project and is the basis of our production system. Next, we create a new production project with all its necessary files, which will be used for the production deployment. Then, we adapt the settings.gradle file inside of this production project according to our production environment and the release version. In the last step, we deploy the production system and make some additional steps like the initialization of the database. So, let's go right into our workspace. We are currently in our development project, which we regard as completed. In the build.gradle file, we already disabled the standard SCM plugin to be able to publish a release with version 3.0 of this project. Please note, before republishing the release of a project, always increase the version number. Now, open a terminal and set the gradle.environment for the active user first. Then, execute the publish task by the following command. To use the Nexus for the Intershop deployment, we recommend creating a new Nexus user. Our Nexus user is ish deploy. Please follow our cookbook to create a personal deploy user. After finishing the publishing process, let's take a look at the artifact repository server for the uploaded release. As you can see, all sub-projects, including the assembly, are stored with the release version 3.0 in our release repository. This release represents the base of our production system and will be used for the upcoming production deployment process later on. For the production deployment, we need to create a new project, which differs compared to a development project. There are no specific folder structures or time-consuming preparations necessary to deploy a production system. Usually, the production project is stored in the production system, where the production server will run. A production project contains Gradle files and a respective settings.gradle. Those are included in the development environment. The settings.gradle can either be newly created by hand or copied from the server directory of a development server. Demo deployment scripts are located in the directory DevOps, Deployment, Project Name. In our tutorial, we create a production project called A Responsive Production inside of our projects folder. Now, we copy the Gradle folder, the Gradle shell, and the settings.gradle out of the prepared deployment project. Please note, it is not necessary to pick the settings.gradle out of this directory, but you can use it as a template and don't need to create the file from scratch. Now, let's modify the settings.gradle. The first adaptation is to define the used assembly. You should find this information within the Nexus. The pattern is group, assembly name, build version. Ours is in COM Intershop Responsive, Inspired B2X, 3.0. The next is to define the host type. You have two properties, host type and environment. For both, you have different options by default, for example, host type Web server, App server, Share, JavaDoc, All, and the environments Development, Test, Production. In our tutorial, we use host type All to deploy the whole server on the system, and we set Production as Environment, since we will deploy a production system. The next section belongs to the deployment configuration. Adapt all settings according to your system infrastructure. For a production system, there are properties that should be set differently from default. Therefore, we want to add a production.properties file to our project to override some of those parameters. We add the following lines so that the file will automatically be copied to the correct server path. When you are finished, save and close the file. Now add the production properties file to the project. Since this was a prepared deployment project, please check and, if necessary, modify the distribution URL within the Gradle wrapper properties file. After that, let's deploy our production system. Therefore, open a terminal inside of the production project and run the deployment task gradle deploy. Please note, for this kind of deployment, the deployment task is called deploy. In development environments, it is called deploy server. If you're unsure, please use the command gradle tasks to check for all available Gradle tasks. After this is done, you have a deployed production server based on a release. At the end of the deployment process, the shell shows an instruction how to install services for starting the application server, the web server, and the web adapter agent. This has to be done as a root user. The services located in etc init.d are configured to start automatically. If you prefer to manually start them, reconfigure them as follows. The next step is to set up and initialize our database. Use the predefined setup script located in eserver1, local, tools, dbinit, bin. By default, this script is not executable by any user. Please change this permission before execution. In our example, the Intershop user has the permission. Open a terminal and execute the db setup script and use the predefined parameter values in square brackets by confirmation or enter your own values. In our tutorial, we use the predefined values. After this is done, we will initialize our database. Therefore, switch back to the local directory and go to bin. Here, open a terminal and set the environment before executing the dbinit script. This process will take some time for the first server deployment. The database is now filled with all Intershop relevant data. After initialization, we only have to start the services. In our case, they are to be found in etc init.d. If you are not sure where to find yours, you have to take a look in the install services script. For Windows users, services can be started using the services console. Before starting the service, please note that the services must be started as an administrator with root privileges. The following services are now started: microservices, discovery server, and subsequently all eServer services. Please note, the number in the service name represents its instance ID. After the services have started, we recommend rebuilding all search indexes. This can be done quickly and easily using the job Rebuild Search Services. To do this, log into the System Management. Switch to the tab Schedules, open Scheduling, and change the domain to SLD System to get only the domain-specific jobs listed. Now execute the job Rebuild Search Indexes. This initiates the search indexes in Solr for the first time. And with this, our tutorial is finished. Please note, if you just want to publish a standard ICM demo system, you can enter one of our responsive starter store assemblies with the responsive starter store version instead. The assemblies are available in the Intershop repository. For example, com Intershop responsive inspired B2X 6.31 refers to product datasheet for patch Intershop Commerce Management 7.10.31 B2X. And you will deploy a basic ICM 7.10.31 version. Congratulations! You've just gone live with your production system. For more information, please take a look into our knowledge base or contact our support team. Thank you for watching and see you next time.